So today you already had the pleasure of being able to watch the live streams of the Age of Sigmar Bloodstorm event held at Gameforce here in Eindhoven. The people at from Age of Sigmar they asked me if I could provide the webcam services to them and set up a live stream, and I was very willing to oblige and also give that part of the hobby a chance, because well, in the end it's all fantasy wargaming after all. But just for the 9th players that are eager for a battle report today, I still have one. So it's a matchup between my Vampire Covenant list and the Undying Dynasties list of my cousin. So I started Vampire Covenant quite a long time ago, and it's also the army that I first played it in Warhammer, then with 9th it's the first army I went to just because I was able to put this Strigoi list on the table that was, in my eyes, just a point-and-click list, and either it worked or it didn't. So it was a good army to just get a grasp on the first basic rules of the game. So now I changed it up a bit, and this is the list. It's a similar list to the list I recently won a small tournament with in The Hague. But I kind of tuned it and tried to optimize it a bit. So what do we have? We have a Vampire Count on a Spectral Steed. That's a flying steed, which is very important to his role in the army. Legend of the Black King gives him a 4+ Aegis save, and Touch of Greatness on paired weapons gives him 6 strength, 6 attacks, with offensive 8, with strength 6. So he mostly hits on 2+, wounds on 2+, so that's very nice. And then the Cursed Medallion allows him to get reroll to hit and reroll to wound on one specific model in the enemy army. Vampire Courtier with a BSB Destiny's Call and the Legion standard, and this pairs quite well with his Occultism Wizard added. So he can get Hand of Glory for a +1 ward save and 5+ ward save for his unit. He goes in the unit of 52 skeletons with the Legion standard, so they have a static combat res of about 7, because you have 3 ranks, 2 banners, and 2 Legion standards. And then coupled with the fact that they have parry and also possibly the 5+ ward save, it's going to be a very tough unit to shift. I realized that I forgot to include on the Vampire Courtier that he also still has Unbreakable Will, so the unit is stubborn. So any combat res, wounds that they suffer are halved, and then comes over the BSB and the Winged Reapers at the end. So it's really a unit that's hard to crumble down, definitely. And then we have Necromancer Army General, who's going to hide in the back, and then in core the zombies to serve as the bunker for the Necromancer. And the rest of the list is just cool Vampire Covenant choices that you can just mix together. So the Court is not too expensive. The Dark Coach gives great utility to the list and is also a tough piece to remove. And then normally I run 2 units of 2 Phantom Hosts. I tried out the Spectral Hunters this game. So against Undying Dynasties, I think it's possibly a worse choice, because they have half the wounds of the Phantom Host and a 3+ ward save, Aegis save instead of a 4+. But against a lot of opponents, their terror might come in very handy. Then 3 Vampire Knights with a champion, 4 Winged Reapers with paired weapons. For the Undying Dynasties list, so my cousin just set up a list that he thought was going to play quite well. We have a Death Cult Hierarch Hierophant, basically just a Wizard Master, and it's insane how efficient Tomb Kings or Undying Dynasties can build their army lists and build up their magic so strong with just spending 500 points. With Sacred Hourglass, which allows you to reroll any rolls that you make on 2 dice, and choosing Cosmology gives you very low rolls for anything. So I don't know if Cosmology is the best lore to pick, but it does have a lot of augment spells also, and the augment triggers the Hereditary of the Tomb Kings of the Undying Dynasty. So that's a good pick, good setup. Then a Pharaoh General with Destiny's Call and Godslayer. This guy is also incredible. He starts out with 4 wounds with Resilience 5, which is great, especially in an army where you can very easily get your wounds back. And then, Godslayer is awesome against anything with an Aegis save. Destiny's Call makes him really hard to shift. Tomb of Architect, Tomb of Harbinger, some skeleton chariots that can come up somewhere on the board. They have an amazing damage output for the amount of points that they do, because, well, the crew has 2 attacks each, and there's 2 crewmen on each of the skeletons, each of the chariots, and they have D3 plus 1 impact hits each. So if you buff them with plus 1 strength from Cosmology, they really tear units apart. And the 15 Necropolis Guard, I'm gonna compare them at the end of the video to some other choices, I think. Then we have 8 Shapti Archers, which is mostly the unit my opponent wanted to try out to see how they worked on the battlefield. For 660 points, it's quite okay, because the Tomb Architect can also give one of the units regeneration. They can shoot 8 times, hit always on a 5+, with strength 5, AP2, I believe. And in combat, they're not too shabby either. Yeah, it's just a sturdy unit that you won't remove in one go, because yeah, you'd have to do like 12 wounds and have them do no wounds, and they still have their regeneration, but possibly they do quite some wounds to you too, so at least removing them in one go is going to be incredibly difficult. Probably your opponent's going to get 2 spells through, so he's going to raise back 4 wounds which have regeneration and everything. It's really a tough unit to shift. So then for the magic, I chose Hand of Glory with my BSB and the Rise, and my Wizard Master. He took Whispers of the Veil and Ancestral Aid, and from the Magical Heirloom he also got the Arise, and being the General he got the Dead Arise. My Vampire Count took Pentagram of Pain, and then my opponent from Cosmology took Perception of Strength, Touched Art, Altered Sight, and Truth of Time. And then here's an army picture of the Vampire Covenant army. Sadly I don't have a picture of my cousin's Undying Dynasty's army yet, because he's still constructing it, and so we were proxying it with some of my Dread Elf models, and they are a bit in a bad state, so I won't give you the embarrassment of that. And then it's into the game. So we had Encircle as deployment type and Secure Target as secondary objective. So my opponent, he is playing on the bottom of the table here, and I'm on the top. And he forced me to play on the flanks, and so that he could have the center of the table. I think it's because he wanted to push me towards, well, one side with his army very effectively. And yeah, it's really going to be a deploying game, because neither of us really have any incentive in starting. Like, if my opponent starts, I'm very fine with that, because well, he can shoot a little bit at my troops, but I can just raise them back. And well, if he doesn't, if I get the first turn, then my magic is going to be a bit less interesting, because I can just put a ward save on my unit. I can cast Pentagram of Pain, but the Pentagram of Pain is not really gonna bother him too much. Yeah, and yeah, I'm fine going second, but I'm also fine going first, because you can still dominate a bit what's going to happen on the board. And yeah, it's it doesn't really matter what we're gonna do. So my first deployment were my Great Bats, and at this stage of the deployment I already actually figured out what I was going to do with my army. So my thought was, well, anyway, the Ushapti, one of the units is going to end up on the hill probably, the other is going to end up somewhere in his main battle line, being able to, well, cover most of the field. The thing that's very vulnerable in my list to these guys, most vulnerable, that are the Winged Reapers. And I want to protect them from his shooting, so they have to go somewhere where they can be out of line of sight, just wholly out of line of sight, because even if I have hard cover, he still hits me on 5s because of his Tomb King Undying Dynasty rules. So the options I have are either to just withdraw them from the battle and let them be shot at, and just, yeah, if my opponent focuses on them the entire battle, then that's also fine. or I can place them all the way on the right and use the right hill to go downwards and go on a very far flank. Or I can try to just lure my opponent into placing everything kind of in the middle and then actually deploying heavily on what is my right flank, so on the image, the left of the field actually. So here I have some coverage from the hill. I have plenty of space for my dark coach also to make sure that they can move independently because it allows them to march, and I can bring some small flanking force that is also able to march, so that doesn't necessarily have to be independent. And that is my plan. So the first things I deploy are my bats, because well, they can go anywhere still. The necro bunker, because it's whether it's there or just a couple of inches to the right doesn't really matter. And then I measure out my skeleton infantry. And yeah, my unit is actually that deep with the 52 skeletons that if I go 5 wide, then I just barely fit in the deployment zone of 9 inches. So this is the first time in my wargaming experience that one unit just covers the entire deployment zone from start to finish, really. Yeah, and then at this point I didn't really want to put anything else down because I still have my Vampire Knights, and I thought they were gonna be a very good independent unit all the way on the right side of the field near the building. And together with my vampire account, I actually forgot my vampire account, all about him during this deployment. But I don't think I would have done it any differently. So at this point, you can see me decide to put everything down and force my opponent to have a first turn, because yeah, he's doing a deployment where he can still move up aggressively, but he can also play a bit defensively. So I want to lure him out and hope that he underestimates the power of some of my units, and yeah, just trap him basically. And then the vampire count is going all the way on the right flank. I'm pretty confident that together with the vampire knights he can clean up one unit of Shabti at least. And then yeah, I was just going for the hunt on his Hierophant. I think that is a very, very weak point in my opponent's list. Like, if you can get to the Hierophant, he doesn't have anyone who can take over. So if you can get to him in turn 2 or so, turn 3, then the rest of the army is gonna just suffer. So now we're done with deployment. So the first turn goes to my opponent, and he's going to yeah, explore what this army of his can do. Yeah, so I believe at this point he already recognizes his issue with my vampire count. Yeah, if I get to his Hierophant, he's in trouble. That's, by the way, one unit of skeleton chariots that he just deployed regularly, and one unit that he put underground. And first turn he just moves up a little, and I'm not really impressed by what he's doing. And possibly, if it actually were a tournament, I might just sit it out. I don't know. Well, it depends on the round of the tournament. Like, if it's team tournament, then I would possibly have just set the game out. Just try to get a draw out of it. Threaten as much as you can. Which is, I think it's very possible with these. The funny thing is that we're both playing undead. So we cannot declare any flee reactions. And also we can take a hit when we get a charge. Normally. So you get kind of this chess game when neither of us wants to charge in, really. Well, normally if you have an army, you get some advantages on the charge and you want to charge in, because otherwise the other guy is gonna decide what's gonna happen probably. And within that you have a bit less of this, because after your opponent charged in and did some damage, you can actually raise back. Whilst you, on some of your units, you cannot, well, for Undying Dynasties, you cannot do that before your opponent has dealt any damage, so your magic is less useful. So this leads to the fact that for a lot of cases you'd rather get charged than charge yourself, because after that you get a magic phase. So you get into this stalemate of nobody really wanting to commit fully, because if you commit, then you lose the control of your army and you have to respond to all kinds of situations that arise. So it's a natural thing. I think mostly in just matchups where you both play undead to play this chess type of game. So I should have gone for that really, and just use my vampire to hand out this. The Hierophant was keeping pressure on his army with the rest of my army. So the placement of the Vampire Knights up there, I'm not too keen on, because they are still frenzied, and my general is a Necromancer, so he's far away. So I'm in hindsight, I don't know, maybe I should have just also moved them up all the way on the right side of the building. So what my opponent did was just push forward a bit, and yeah, I'm a bit afraid of his skeleton chariots that can pop up somewhere. I'm trying to cover my winged reapers from his Shopti with the bows, and my dark coach is just going over the edge of the hill to be able to charge on the pieces on the center of the field, forcing my opponent to do something with his chariots really. And yeah, because they can get out of the way, but he's kind of crowded up there, and the dark coach, I'm confident charging in on the chariots. I think I'm also confident on charging in on the Shopti, just to possibly to put them in place and then come up with my Spectral Hunters or the Winged Reapers, depending on what's going to happen. And yeah, Scorpion is just chaff in this game. It's so funny that a Scorpion, just a chunky model like a Scorpion, is basically just reduced to chaff, because the units you field are quite ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. So this is my turn, my movement. Yeah, I just move up very passively with my skeletons. They have to come away from the edge of the board, just because my Necromancer otherwise cannot raise any skeletons in this unit. And the other unit just stays behind to be able to countercharge, because the brick of 52 skeletons can take a charge and be very confident to hold their ground. The other one, against the stuff that I'm facing, I'm not so sure. So yeah, we will see. So in the meantime, what you've seen is that my opponent actually declared a charge with his chariots onto my skeletons and made the charge. And now we're working out his skeleton chariots that were entombed. And my opponent, basically he put them where they are positioned now, the marker, and then it scattered onto my dark coach. So he had to take 3 dangerous terrain tests that fail only on 1, and then, or 6, I don't know, and then he was able to place them there. The Spectral Hunters on the left are actually facing towards the lake, because I was afraid that he would place his skeleton chariots there. Even so, it was a good choice to do so, because otherwise he would have probably put them there. So I don't regret this choice at all. And then on the right, where I've moved forward my vampire count very aggressively, my opponent decides to just go stand in front of it. Yeah, this was an okay play. I think it's about the only play that my opponent could have done here. Because otherwise I have a free reign of decision what to do with this model. My best play here would be to still just go for his Hierophant and just knock out his magic. knock out his Tomb Architect, get this ward save off of his regeneration save off of his Shopteeth. So otherwise he moves up with his skeletons, and it's funny that he can play so confidently with just a block of skeletons, whilst I have to be a bit more wary. Because it seems like we're playing comparable armies, yet I don't know why he was able to play them so aggressively. So they are within line of sight of both the Dark Coach and the Winged Reapers, actually. So it's I don't know if I will be that confident as my opponent here. So we go to Magic, and then in the Magic phase, I believe I can't remember now, but anyway, I won't give you any spoilers. So he's just buffing up some units. He casts the Perception of Strength on his chariots to get extra strength on them. I desperately try to dispel this spell because I know that if he casts the spell on the chariots, they go up to rampage mode, really, because the chassis goes up to strength 5. The crewmen go up to strength 5. I'm only resilience 3, so sad face. And I didn't have my my Aegis save on. So in the top of the screen you can see me stack up some dice. I'm actually using some dice now to keep track of the casualties on the skeletons, because the skeleton chariots, they actually do wreak havoc. So the 3 chariots of them combined do 15 wounds, I believe, which is totally preposterous for a unit that's like 350 points and comes out of your core slot. So you saw me take some time here to just measure out some things and go over some options that I have. There's options. So in the end, what I go for is the trouble I have is that the Vampire Knights on the right, they have to take a frenzy test, unless I declare a charge with them. Then they don't have to take it, because I do declare a charge with them. So because of this, I decide to charge in my vampire count onto the Shopti, which is a big mistake. I should have gone for the just for the hunt on his wizard. But on the other hand, the vampire knights together with the general would make it probably through the Shopti in like 2 turns or so. Otherwise, I can commit my winged reapers to either the chariots or the skeletons of my opponent and be in a happy place. But then I'm sacrificing my winged reapers because I have the counter charge of my opponent, and my unit's gonna take a lot of damage from that. That's at least my estimation. So actually, in hindsight, it might still have been okay to just push the winged reapers up. Then the black coach, I could have charged with that. I thought it would just end up being stuck in the Shopti. I could have charged together in the unit with his general, the skeletons, but I figured that he would actually win the grind. And then also if I don't manage to come in and go through in one round, then his Shopti would just flank me and obliterate all of my hard-hitting units, really. So my black coach doesn't have a lot of places to go because the Shopti are also angled a bit towards the left. So he's just gonna decide on to face his chariots and take the charge and tank it. He has 2 wounds left in my magic phase. I hope to either with an invocation of my BSB or with an invocation of my necromancer to get at least 1 wound back. And then with my necromancer, if I get the spell, then actually 2 wounds back, because he can also heal 1 model within 12 inches. So this is what we end up with. Also the charge with the vampire knights on the Shopti, they actually didn't make it, so I was extremely frustrated by that, because you're on the verge of getting a frenzy check, and I Probably I shouldn't have declared the charge actually, because I could just do it on the frenzy check afterwards. But then anyway, I thought I had to declare my vampire count in there. Because Vampire Knights are on their own, they wouldn't have been able to clear the Shapti. At least the counter charge of my skeletons with the Court of the Damned was successful on removing the skeleton chariots. And yeah, the only result in my magic phase, which you can see now. Yeah, I actually got 2 spells through. I got a unit of zombies behind the Dark Coach, just in case the chariots were able to go through. And I managed to get a reroll to hit on the Dark Coach, just to help it out in combat. And it's within 6 inches of the Wing Creepers, it's within 12 inches of the BSB, so it's on a -2 on wounds from Crumble. So if I do manage to survive the hit, then I'm going to survive the combat there and grind my opponent out with my Vampiric on a 3+. Yeah, so the combat with the vampire count against the Shapti went decent. So I managed to do, I believe, 5 wounds, and my opponent managed to do 2 wounds on my vampire count. It was so, it was like, oh my god, no, please don't, no. Because, well, this prospect that it gives you is that he's gonna die next turn, and I really need this guy to just frustrate my opponent and make him fearful. Yeah, so yeah, and also one charge that I tried to make was the Spirit Host against the flank of my opponent's skeletons, because if I managed that charge, I was going to be able to lock him in place for 1 round. He wouldn't be able to move, so I could just freely move with my entire army. This was a charge on a 10, so I figured that I could just go for it, because it doesn't have any ill consequences. Because I don't want to move him up any further anyway than the failed charge that they had. And the worst case scenario, I could chaff him up with my Great Bats, which I ended up doing because I failed the charge. So then it's to my opponent. My opponent charges in with the Necropolis Guard onto my unit with the Court of the Damned, and he charges my Great Bats with his Shapti. Actually, not with the skeletons. I don't know if he just wanted to move up his Shapti on the board, or, well, he didn't have any viable targets anyway. And he also makes a charge with the chariots against my Black Dark Coach, which was actually also like an 8 or 9. Yeah, so that's a bit of a contrast to my turn, where I tried a couple of charges. And yeah, well, the vampire count, he actually came into the Shapti, of course. Yeah, and then my priority in this magic phase is, I'm willing to let nearly every spell go through, as long as it's not that juicy, except for the +1 strength on his chariots against my Dark Coach. That is the one spell I definitely have to stop, because I have 2 wounds left, because I didn't get any back in my magic phase. So he puts up some spell on my Vampire Knights. I don't remember what it was. He also puts up a spell on his Necropolis Guards for +1 offense and +1 defense, which only matters for, I don't remember what it matters for. And then he goes for with just 2 dice, obviously, for his +1 strength on the chariots, and I don't manage to dispel it. I just don't. So yeah, that was sad phase. Yeah, so then we continue. There's no more shooting from the Shaptis anymore. At least that's a blessing. But let's get involved in some combat, so the juicy stuff of the game. So my opponent is racking up his dice for his Necropolis Guard, and he's going to just fully focus on my Court of the Damned. So my Court actually is able to strike first, because I lower his agility by 2, and I have high agility myself. The riders, they strike him on 3+, and they wound him on 2+, and I actually managed to do a wound. And the horses with their 8 attacks, they actually also managed to do a wound. So I end up doing 2 wounds to him, and he just smacks the cord. So his BSB already, oh, his Harbinger, yeah, his BSB. He gets a hit on a 6. So as it is a hit on a 6, it's a poisoned hit with battle focus. So he actually does 2 hits, of which 1 auto wounds, and then the other one he didn't wound, unfortunately. And then the unit also has well, it has paired weapons, so it ignores parry. It has offensive 5. I believe, because, well, of the spell. So normally it's offensive 3, paired weapons 4, offensive 5 from the spell in this case. So he hit me on 3s. Every 6 that he rolls is a battle focus and a poison. And also for the further rolls he does have lethal strike. So out of this unit, the front rank has 2 attacks, the back rank has 1 attack. So you get about 20 attacks with battle focus, poison, lethal strike, strength 4. For a unit that's 260 points. It's oh my god, it's an amazing unit. Yeah, but I'm not gonna dwell on it now. So then we go to the combat with the chariots. He manages to just kill my dark coach, mostly because of the extra strength that he got. Because he managed to do a total of 2 wounds. So yeah, that was a big shame. And then he went into the zombies. So I was hoping that I could raise back just a couple of more zombies and get them stuck there, and then all the worries will be over. Yeah, so it's my turn. I grind down the Shapti a bit more, and he doesn't manage to kill my vampire count, which is nice. And I go all in on this other unit of Shapti. So with my big unit of skeletons, with my BSB, with my winged reapers, everything just goes to town. So I'm confident that I can handle this. I actually wanted to charge his Necropolis Guard with my winged reapers and the Shapti with my skeletons, because I was confident that I would grind them down eventually. But as things were, the winged reapers, if they were to charge the flank of the Necropolis Guard, then the skeletons couldn't make the charge into the Shapti. So I chose for this, and the rest of the Spectral Hunters also declared a charge against the flank of the Shapti, needing an 8, but they didn't make it. It's a bit of a recurring theme to my feeling in this game. And also the Spirit Hosts, they again declared a charge against the flank of his skeleton big boss to just lag it down. But they also didn't make it. So we go to town again. My vampire count is going crazy. He has 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, and his first round I believe he did 5 wounds, and the second round he did 2 wounds, and the round after he did another 2. No, he did 6 wounds, and then the round after he also did 6 wounds. On the other hand, the Vampire Knights, they came blazing in, and they hit like 2 times and they didn't wound, needing 2s to wound. So embarrassing. So I did win combat against the Shapti, but it's still not enough to remove this unit off the field. I actually did manage to get a wound back at some point with my Vampire Lord, so he's only on 1 wound that he has taken. So he has 2 left. So it's going well. I'm just grinding down this unit very happily. And then the Necropolis Guard of my opponent just go to town, and they remove an entire block of skeletons in 1 combat. Whilst I don't do any wound. I don't think this is normal. Please tell me this is not normal, because I don't want this unit to be that strong. It's seeing it on the table was really insane. It's just a unit of 15 guys. So, and it has bodyguard. Like, why? But anyway. Yeah, so the other combat against the Ushabti. Uh, yeah, so at this point I kind of came to conclude that the luck of my opponent was at a higher level than my luck. Because, yeah, we were doing this combat and all the preceding combats. I had a feeling that yeah, it wasn't going in my favor necessarily. And in this combat, we draw or something. Yeah, so I only do something like 3 wounds to him or so. And apparently my ranks and numbers, they all don't count. The fact that I have parry doesn't count. I had a ward save up this round. I only managed to save one of those. So yeah, that was pretty terrible. Anyway, so my hopes of a very big victory this battle are kind of over. Because my opponent, yeah, he's able to fully sandwich my stubborn unit. At least it's stubborn, yeah. So that's a good thing, yeah, indeed. But yeah, the Winged Reapers sadly are not. Well, I can choose one unit in my combat to be stubborn, so I could also choose the Winged Reapers. And otherwise, yeah, the chariots, they just managed to clear up the zombies that I grew for them. I didn't manage to get some more zombies, so yeah, they just went through in one round. And he fully sandwiches me, and he brings ranks, and yeah, it's a sad situation for me now. Like, if I had cleared the Ushabti, then it would be okay. Well, my estimation was that I was going to have at least one skeleton still left standing against his Necropolis guard, and that I would wear down the Shabti so much that there would be like 2 or 3 models left. In this case, I would have handled a. Yeah, he could only have countercharged with his block of skeletons, which I would not really mind, because I have higher static combat thrust than him. My damage output is comparable to his. Nothing's gonna happen really. So his Lord would probably challenge my BSB. I would just first dance with a champion, and yeah, nothing would really happen. But as it turns out, he has another 5 Shabti that also joined the fight, and like 20 attacks from Necropolis guard that ignore my parry. And yeah, I have a ward save up, but I don't save a lot of those, I believe, from all the wounds that I get, which is like 25 or so. I do manage to get my ward save on like 3 or 4 of these wounds. Yeah, so the total amount of wounds I do is like 3. And then in the middle of the table you can see my BSB standing there. He actually at this time had a 3+ ward save that he had to reroll. But my opponent, he hit my BSB on 4s. He wounds him on 2s, okay. And he has multiple wounds too. But hitting on 4s is like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hits. Winning on 2s, you could lose one. So we'll just go for 2 hits that wound. I have a 3+ ward save that I have to reroll, so I'll still make one of those after the reroll. So I would have had to get like 2 wounds on average. I was kind of gone. Oh, I just did 6. But on the plus side, finally on the right side, I do manage to grind down these. Oh my god, Shopty. Oh my god. Yeah, so, well, that happened eventually. So my vampire count is 3, yay! And he can charge, yeah, Scorpion, yay. So my vampire knights, they charge his Hierophant block, but they don't make it. Yeah, and otherwise, yeah, the Winged Reapers are gone because of crumbling. The big skeleton unit is actually not gone yet, because there was just so many bloody skeletons. The Spectral Hunters, they tried to make a charge, I believe, but they failed. Yeah, they charged the Scorpion, I believe. It failed. Yeah. So at this time, my general is still in his unit of zombies, but he's going to be quickly removed from the field. So yeah, things are looking bad. I don't have a lot of points of my opponent. My opponent by this time has a lot of points of me. It's bad. It's really bad. Yeah, and my vampire count, he does manage to clear off a Scorpion, which he shouldn't have any difficulties with, really. And then it's my opponent's turn again. He doesn't manage to grind down my general in one go, because I do manage to grow back some zombies, but that doesn't really matter, to be honest. Yeah, so he decides to reform a bit. And yeah, the only thing I still see is that I could still go for his Hierophant now, but yeah, you see the result of going into his Shapties. I shouldn't have done it, because it would have been much more a game of me hunting him down if I had just flown over the Shapties and not have given anything about my Vampire Knight. So the correct play with the Vampire Knights, in my mind, after having made the mistake of moving them so much in the middle of the board, would have been to charge actually the Necropolis Guard and hope that I would fail the charge, because if I were to get the charge on the Shaptis, they would have likely stricken me down, made me crumble, so my opponent would have been able to reform, charge my Vampire Count in the rear, or in the flank, and then I would have been in trouble. So I would have had to hope for a charge on the Necropolis Guard and try to make sure that they couldn't reform and or pivot and charge my character next round. Yeah, so the entire army now is looking at my single vampire count and the vampire knight I have left. This vampire knight is still very important though, because he's going to try and score an objective. And my vampire count is going to just go for it and go into his big block, in which he hit his cowardice Hierophant, and I'm going to strike him down. Yeah, but there's still his general in the way. So yeah, so this was funny. So I charge in. I do 3 wounds on his general, and his general doesn't manage to do any wounds on me. So I stick because we draw in combat. And then I realized that his little unit of skeleton archers, they can actually flank me. He's going to lock me in a challenge, so I don't want that. So I present my flank to his unit just to get out of line of sight. And then he, in the magic phase, he tries to get any augment off on his Tomb King. And I made the mistake of dispelling the first 2 spells and not dispelling the last spell, which was to raise a wound, and then also just from the hereditary get a wound back. So he's back on having 3 wounds left. But then we go to combat and my vampire count goes crazy, because yeah, his Pharaoh was the model that I nominated to have rerolls to hit and to wound again. So I do another 6 wounds to him, and he manages to save only 3 of those. So yeah, I managed to strike his Tomb King down. Yay! And I don't die to the Tomb King's curse. I instead die to the combat rare. So that was quite a loss for the Vampire Covenant. But my single wound on the game board, the Vampire Knight with 1 wound left, he actually managed to score the scenario for me. Or well, to contest the scenario, because my opponent also had one of the counters. So let's call it a draw, right? No, seriously. Just to wrap up, the one unit I was most amazed by in this match was just the Necropolis Guard, just these 15 guys. Oh my god, the damage output that these guys do for the points that they cost. If I was just out of curiosity comparing them to Witch Elves just after the battle. Witch elves. If you buy 15 witch elves with a BSB in there, it's the same points as 15 Necropolis guards with paired weapons with also BSB in there. So the witch elves, they have one attack each, no, 2 attacks each. In the end, they get to 3 attacks each. But they have paired weapons. They have offensive 5 in the end. They have strength 3. They have poison, toughness 3. That's it. That's just it. They have frenzy, so you can frenzy bait them. Instead, if you take the Necropolis cards, the upgrades that you get are +1 strength, +1 resilience. You get battle focus, you get lethal strike, you get bodyguard with your character, and you get an armor save. And you're in that, so you crumble instead of you break. Yeah, so I was just perplexed really perplexed by this unit. It's insane. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of people that claim in any discussion that you shouldn't do any cross army comparisons, but I would say that this just goes over the limit, because the lethal strikers especially makes them also scary against targets that are highly armored, whilst something like a witch elf has a very special role. And yeah, in the current state, it doesn't really get to the level where it should be to fulfill this role. Like, you need an extra strength, maybe, or you need like battle focus or anything to help them out. But just having poison is not enough. And then there's these guys that come on and they do have both lethal strike and battle focus and strength 4 and toughness 4, and I think it's too much. But anyway, let's just call it an enjoyable game. Because I had fun after all anyway. So I hope you enjoyed the battle report, and see you on the next one.